Imagine someone who spends most of their time in bed, lying down and not doing much, and who easily gets weary and doesn't feel like doing anything since they don't have the motivation to do so. Most of us would probably classify this behavior as nothing more than a simple sloth. Still, the truth is that there is a lot of overlap between laziness and burnout, which can make it challenging to discriminate between the two. Burnout is a negative state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive stress and an inability to cope with it. According to the phrase's definition that many individuals often abuse and throw around. In 2010, a poll indicated that around 75% of adults in the United States alone had experienced symptoms of burnout, with over 40% of cases being more severe than less severe. Since there has been a remarkable increase in instances, we must educate ourselves and better understand the nature of burnout, mainly when we risk developing it. There are 6 telltale symptoms that what you're experiencing right now isn't laziness, but rather burnout. But before we get started, kindly subscribe to this channel so you don't miss intriguing videos like this one. Number 6. You have the impression that you are cut off from everything. Depersonalization, also known as the persistent feeling of being detached from oneself, is one of the symptoms of burnout that a person may be experiencing without fully realizing or understanding what it is. If you are suffering from burnout, this may be one of the symptoms you are experiencing. People experiencing depersonalization report feeling a strange emotional numbness and emptiness, as if watching their life from outside of themselves, or going through the motions of every day as if on autopilot. People experiencing depersonalization report feeling as if they were watching their life from outside of themselves. They don't feel like themselves anymore, they don't feel engaged by anything, and they struggle constantly with an overwhelming sense of helplessness and an inability to regain control of their lives. They don't feel like they can be themselves anymore. Number 5. You have a history of being motivated. If, on the other hand, you are merely a lazy person, then it stands to reason that you have always been a lazy person, except for a few unusual circumstances. After all, slothfulness is a character feature, and character traits remain constant throughout time. A lazy person never wants to make an attempt or put any effort into anything they are doing. If, on the other hand, you used to be self-motivated and high-achieving, frequently excelling in particular areas, but have only recently become fatigued, indifferent, and unmotivated, then it is more likely that you are suffering from burnout rather than laziness, as the majority of others would assume you are. Number 4. You used to have a lot of passion. Like the previous point, one evident distinction between someone burnt out and lazy is that the former used to have things they were passionate about. Still, they may no longer struggle to find interest or enjoyment in it. On the other hand, the latter does not have any things they were previously enthusiastic about. Burnout can make it difficult for you to do what you once loved to do or were enthusiastic about, whether it be a talent you have, a sport you play, or even your academic or professional performance in general. Because of how much you overworked yourself, and how close you were to breaking point as a direct result, you may even learn to despise or detest it in the future. Number 3. You've developed a gloomy disposition and a short fuse. Do you suddenly find that you are short-tempered and easily agitated? Do you find that you are frequently emotionally out of control yet unsure why this is the case? Indicators of burnout include irritability and moodiness. However, these symptoms are frequently ignored. Therefore, if you suddenly struggle to keep your feelings in check, particularly because this was never before an issue for you, this could be why. On the other hand, lazy people are a striking contrast to this in that they tend to be very comfortable, laid back, placid, and unaffected by things. This is in stark contrast to the other types of individuals. Number 2, you haven't been taking care of yourself like you should. Indeed, most lazy people do not try to properly care for themselves, whether physically, psychologically, or emotionally. However, this is not always the case. On the other hand, the people suffering from burnout haven't always been in this state. This is the main difference between them and those who are healthy. One of the most alarming warning indications that an individual may be emotionally and physically exhausted is if they begin to disregard their self-care and withdraw socially from others. They stop trying to groom themselves or look nice. They tend to spend much of their time by themselves doing nothing since they are so quickly weary of even the simplest jobs. Number 1, these shifts were placed in a measured manner. You should also be aware that burnout is a progressive condition, which may be the most significant fact to remember. Because of this, none of the things that we've discussed thus far feel detached from ourselves and alienated from everything around us, socially retreating and ignoring our self-care. Losing interest and motivation, particularly in things that we used to love. Losing interest and motivation in things we used to love will happen suddenly. Studies have shown that there are 5 distinct stages of burnout, each with increasing degrees of severity. The honeymoon phase is how it begins, followed by the beginning of feeling stressed, then chronic stress and burnout, followed by habitual burnout. Each of these stages is more severe than the previous one. When there is still a reasonable degree of stress, but optimism, interest, motivation, and performance may already start dropping. The second phase is when many people begin to suffer symptoms. During this phase, there is still a moderate amount of stress. By the time you reach the 5th and final stage of burnout, it has already become so ingrained in your life that the feeling of mental and physical exhaustion becomes more persistent and more difficult to treat, and you also become more susceptible to the development of despair and anxiety. If you can recognize the warning symptoms of burnout at an early stage, it will be much simpler for you to seek assistance and fully recover. Because of this, it is extremely important to educate people about burnout, rather than merely brushing it off as laziness, as most people tend to do. Therefore, if you or someone you know may be experiencing mental or emotional burnout, please do not delay contacting a mental health professional and conversing with them about it as soon as possible. We hope that you enjoyed this video. Kindly give your valuable response in our comment section below, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more interesting and informative videos.